All right, so this is the Purchasing Reliability Working Group for January the 26th. I've got the first agenda item, which is actually just a recap of trying to map fulfillment's roadmap over to this technical foundation, which we're trying to build. And what I wanted to do here really is go through each of the different initiatives that we're working throughout purchasing reliability and across these different cross-functional teams, and try to tie it back to a specific initiative or deliverable that we're all working on. So the first thing that I have here under 1A is infrastructure. So currently we're working on the Azure to GCP migration. This is, I don't want to go through the whole problem statement again, but this is something that we've been wanting to do for a couple of years, and Azure just isn't stable right now. We've got 30 gigs of storage space on there, and we definitely need something more scalable and more robust to be able to actually run customers dot. And we have line of sight on that. But the impacts of that infrastructure right now is causing two problems. The first one is for cloud licensing. We get intermittent failures due to the infrastructure being offline whenever cloud licensing from an instance is trying to phone home over to our servers. So that's the first failure. And then the second one is related to cloud licensing. We have intermittent failures when a quarterly subscription reconciliation is trying to be done because once again, our infrastructure is offline. Brian, you've got a comment under cloud licensing.
Yeah, I know this is infrastructure, so maybe this is in a different spot exactly, because this is more broadly cloud licensing. As I put Omer's name here, I realized maybe he's not part of this working group, and maybe he should be. And I don't see Justin here, but I know there was an action item for different DRIs to provide updates so that we could do, I believe it's going to be an async e-group update going forward. And I was wondering if that information had been provided, but I don't see either one of them here. Maybe Tatiana, I don't know. You can comment. And if not, we can put it to the side.
Yeah, Omar is going to be looped into this meeting starting next week. He's just rolling off the chief of staff team and then transitioning fully onto fulfillment. One of Omar's updates was to go async for cloud licensing updates, and he posted that in e-group channel. So you should see that there. I can also link to it.
Good.
Thanks.
Real quick. Oh, sorry. Real quick, the migration over to GCP, that is slated to help solve these problems, right? These are related?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So the way to think of this is, we're looking at our data modeling and our integrations across systems. And in that sort of work stream, we should really make sure that we have robust retry logic and that failures aren't happening. That we can sort of tackle at a system level, but if the whole system's offline, which is infrastructure, it's going to fail. So we're trying to sort of solve the infrastructure piece first here. Great.
So this is related to 2 down below.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very good. Okay.
Yeah. So any other questions on how infrastructure impacts cloud licensing or QSR? Otherwise, we'll move to the next one. So the next one is data modeling and integrations across systems. For any single transaction to be processed successfully, it passes through Salesforce, Zora, customers.GitLab, and then a few other systems along the way. And anytime those systems have different data models, data can be dropped along the way. And if we don't have the right retry or syncing mechanisms across those systems, once again, things get dropped along the way. And this causes outages like, for instance, Red Hat or Lululemon, where you have certain data showing in one state in one system and a different state in another system. So I've written down a few things which are dependent on our work here. The first is QSRs, so quarterly subscription reconciliations. Currently, some of these are failing due to missing Zora data across systems. So for instance, we try to do a QSR reconciliation, but when we try to do it, we have a check for a Zora ID, and then we go and check in customers dot, but that Zora ID is not there. Therefore, we skip that QSR. So we discussed this one a couple of weeks back, and we've got some more details in the agenda down below.
Jerome, that one specifically, the customers dot subscription database and the Zora subscription database are out of sync. It's those two specific systems.
Yeah. Next, we have EDIS. So EDIS is us trying to integrate the Arrow marketplace. And as we start to integrate another channel marketplace like Arrow or possibly AWS or GCP, what we're trying to do is basically open up another endpoint for us to be able to receive transactions or purchases, and then sort of throw it into the whole purchasing system that we currently have built, and then also output on the licensing or provisioning side back over to that channel partner. Now, it's a little bit difficult to do that right now because of the way which our systems are structured, where if we sort of treat it like a black box, and we can get more into this in our EDIS meeting, but if we treat it into a black box, as a black box where you have an input and output, we're starting to throw things into that black box and it's not necessarily coming out the same way. So I think going through that exercise of looking at how our different systems are integrated will help us better understand where things might be dropping within that black box, so that in the future we can have sort of service interfaces where it can take an input and then output something that's expected. And then the last one that I have here is Project Horse. So Project Horse, I think restructuring these data models is a prerequisite to be able to introduce greater tendency. So we've got a workspaces project right now, and related to workspaces, we should also have a billing entity that ties up with that workspace. I don't think we can actually move forward with that work until we have a good handle on our current data models. So that's why I'm thinking of it as a prerequisite. I'll pause there and see if there are any questions about how this data modeling and integrations work across our systems ties to these initiatives. If not, I'll move down to Zora Orders API. So currently on Zora, we've got the simplest way to think of it is like a V1 and a V2 API. V1 is subscribe and amend. V2 is orders, which enables ramps. When we did end of availability, we used subscribe and amend. And with subscribe and amend, you can only do, for end of availability, we tried to do ramping functionality where we had different prices in year 1, 2, and 3. Using Zora, we have, using Zora subscribe and amend API, we're only able to actually hold on to 1 year's worth of data for pricing. And years 2 and 3, we actually needed to sort of have a hacky way of saying that this customer is going to have this certain price in years 2 and 3. And we tried to store all of that data inside of customers dot. And then when the renewal occurs onto the next year, we try to have customers dot go in and update Zora. Now this causes a bunch of issues because compounded with sort of data integrity issues across customers dot and Zora and across Salesforce as well. It makes reporting very hard and forecasting really hard because you don't have all of this data just solely inside Zora. We have it spread across multiple systems. So when we're looking at Project Matterhorn right now, which we're considering ramp functionality, moving over to sort of this V2 of Orders API really builds a much cleaner path to have all of this data sit inside of Zora and have Zora manage all of the subscription timings, and also to be able to do proper forecasting of all of that data. So that's a very high level of how Zora Orders API and Project Matterhorn are related. And Brian, I see that you've got a comment there.
Yeah, I just feel like we're close to unlocking orders harmonization. And there's been a lot of good work across the teams. And I was hoping that Mark or Jack could voice over what the remaining pieces are. Also, I really want to give a shout out to Tyler for all of the work there. I know that's been above and beyond even what you've been working on in other areas. So thank you for that. So Mark or Jack, can you comment?
Sure.
Oh, go for it.
Mark, you want to go? Mark, go ahead.
I put in my notes there, but over the last few weeks, we've been evaluating the CPU data model and think we've identified the main trouble points. And right now we're working with Jack on peering into SFDC customizations. The most notable one being the thing called Calico Jack, which manages ARR booking metrics. And we're working with Jack's team to get that built and QA, assist with QA as well. Jack, did you want to add anything there?
Nope, that's about it. The good news is that the Zora changed their data model on us, but the pieces we use and the pieces that changed only had a small bit of overlap. So we're hoping that we can move forward with this quickly. Thank you, Mark, for all your help on that. I believe there should be something in the issue. We can keep pushing on this. I do want to call out that this will unlock orders and orders harmonization, which is great. That's step one. I just want to make sure everyone understands that there's additional steps to both sales assisted ramps and especially ramps at the web store. There's a lot of other keys that need to turn for both those to go. Sometimes I feel like we glue these things together when we should be seeing them as a dependency.
All right, so that's a recap of all of those different things we're trying to move forward on our roadmap and how it ties back to our technical foundation. I wanted to check in with you, Sid, because you're part of eGroup, and I know eGroup is asking for a lot of these different deliverables. Do you feel like you have a good understanding of those deliverables and how they tie back to building this stronger technical foundation and the work we're trying to do in this group?
I think it's hard. Like, I'm seeing a lot of stuff for the first time, and I think everything you said made total sense. It's a bit of like, why are we, like, what's been happening in the last 3 years that we're now still don't have Zora as a single source of truth and everything else. And it's a bit unfair to the people in this call, but it's that's the thought spinning through my head. Like, how come that some of the basic things like having a single source of truth and stuff like that is not there? Did we like underinvest all these years? Did we change plans? Like, I see a path out of the mess, but if we don't understand why we got into it, I'm worried.
I think the short answer is underinvestment and just incoming initiative after incoming initiative. I think the first two things, so infrastructure, it's one that we had to push pretty hard on to get prioritized, and James, who's on this call, has been wanting to get it done for a couple of years. So we put together an engineering allocation to do that in the last 6 months, and that's close. That's a couple of weeks away from delivery now. For the second one, which is data modeling and integrations across systems, I think last year in, I think, September of 2020, we had the commercial and licensing working group, which had a similar set of folks on this call. And, you know, on that, as part of that working group, the outcome was let's make Zora a single source of truth. Now, we decided that, but we never actually got around to doing the implementation work. And I think that's because we got swept up with all of these other incoming initiatives over the past year and a half of just running. And the last one that I mentioned, which is like moving over to Zora Orders, I think the prerequisite to that would actually be moving to Zora as a single source of truth and ensuring that's in a good state before moving over to Zora Orders. So I think, in short, it's an underinvestment.
Thanks for that.
One thing to note here is we should probably be specific about what we got swept up in. You know, a lot of these things were conscious decisions about going IPO and other things that, you know, I think we made, but we just forgot, right? And I think you're dead on what your assessment is, but like I think we should definitely call out like what are the specific things, you know, not necessarily month for month, but maybe quarter by quarter. That, like, you know, because I think that's what I'm seeing is that trend of we talk about this, but, you know, how do we hold the line on actually doing work?
I'm just going to voice over Jerome. I think you said that very, very well. I think you're spot on with how you depicted that. I don't know if we want to get into what in this meeting, but we could certainly do a retro on, like, you know, the right order of operation is, I think, another thing that has caused us to have to come back around. And I think we made those decisions at the right time, be it end of availability or cloud licensing with Supersonics and things of that nature. And now we have a path. I'm glad to hear Sid saying that he sees a path forward, because I do believe we have a path forward. Well said, Jerome.
Right. So let's talk about that path forward, starting with infrastructure. So I'll provide a brief status update on the Azure to GCP migration. So we're tracking on a target date of February the 5th. We're about 83% complete right now. Under context, I've linked over to some of the materials we've been working on. So we've put together a pre-flight checklist, a cutover checklist. We've done a dry run as well. And what we're working on right now is the production readiness review. So production readiness review is basically anytime development is working on infrastructure and we actually want to do the handover to the SRE team to be able to operate it, we go through this readiness review that acts as that handoff. We're also engaging with more stakeholders like data, sales, billing, and NTAP security. This cutover does touch a lot of different systems like Salesforce, Zora, Okta, you know, sort of customers dot sort of sits in the middle or touches all of those different pieces. So we're working with those different stakeholders to ensure that we can sort of orchestrate all of this at the same time. We also are working on basic monitoring and our replication of database backups. What's next is to merge the readiness review merge request, and then also finish our monitoring setup. In the next couple of weeks, what we'll do is we'll start getting tighter and tighter on the actual execution plan for February the 5th. I'll pause there and see if James, you have any other details you want to add on this?
No, I think the only thing is that confidence remains high, as in to the migration on the 5th. So far, we have no blockers and things are going pretty well.
Awesome.
I was going to say, let me voice over. I was in the middle of typing here, but one of the things I want to do also is I want to get more specific around the statement with Zora. We tend to say that a lot. Zora is a platform that has discrete products that we're running. And so I think we need to start calling that out. We need to start saying Zora CPQ or Zora billing or Zora revenue, because it's really easy to get just a blanket statement. And depending on what we're touching has a different impact to different teams. And now a lot of those teams can be the same people, but I would like to start moving forward with being very specific when we talk about Zora.
I think in this specific case, it would be Zora billing. I don't think we're touching CPQ because that plugs directly in from Salesforce. And revenue is, yeah.
I agree with that. One thing we do need to count to keep in mind is that the downstream effect. So anything we do in billing has a possible impact in revenue. So we should never say, hey, it's just billing. We need to ask the question, is what we're doing in the billing module going to have downstream effect? Sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no.
That's a good call out.
Brian, can you maybe share our application, screen share our application landscape and point out the different Zora parts?
Yeah, give me 1 second and I'll grab it.
And then shadows, depending on what we learn, maybe we should add Zora to top misused terms, where we say, look, don't call it Zora, call it billings, call this, call that. If you call it Zora this, that's fine, but just calling something Zora is no longer allowed in the company. So I agree, it's messing with us. Thanks for that.
Sorry, I was on mute. I was on mute there. We've been working on a couple different versions, and actually, this is the old one. Christopher, I can't find the new rev that you did, but in general, we do have something called Zora, and this is an older one. But we have a Zora box here, and we talk about billings here, subscription management. We can get very particular if we want to, and then we have RevRec, Zora Collect, which actually this is an older one. Zora Collect is gone now at this point in some of the different reporting and financial aspects of it. We have an action item right now, and this is what we'll do for the next meeting is, Christopher, can you work with the team in getting the most up-to-date version that we've been working on as a team and then provide it to this group?
Yeah,
and then also,
Brian, what I see is that in this chart, you're also treating Zora as a monolith. And you just called out that we should treat the different parts of Zora separately. So I would start walking the walk.
Yep, agreed.
As the leader of IT, cannot even find the most recent version of this. I can't find it. We have a handbook. Stuff should be in the handbook. Can we make this into mermaid charts? This is not the first time I've suggested
we have
that. I think it's time, because I think we should all be able to find this and to update this.
Yep. The action item is to do that. I will make sure the team gets a first pass at what that looks like in the handbook. Christopher and Courtney, can you take that action?
And it's not going to be one mermaid chart, right? This is like 50 different pages where you can zoom in and zoom out to the different parts.
Yep.
All right, I think we're just running up on time on data models and integrations across systems. I've written down some next steps under 2, 3, and 4. I think most of this is probably mostly on fulfillment and on NTAPs as well. So we can talk about this one offline. I think we've made good progress in just defining our data models, and we just now need to link up current state between customers dot and Zora. So I think Tyler and Mark, I'll work with both of you offline to get that done.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'm very encouraged by the plans. I think we, this is, it feels like we're making progress. So thanks, Jerome, Brian, everybody else who contributed to this.
Thank you for sponsoring this working group. I think we needed it. Thanks all.